This is a solutions event. This is what's happening.
After 5 successful events in North America, the Freedom Cell Network is partnering with Free Humanity to bring the People's Reset to Bath, UK. In 2020, as the World Economic Forum announced the Great Reset Initiative, millions of people around the world began questioning the narratives being fed to them.
You must stay at home.
Millions of free-thinking people responded with protests, marches and rallies focused on waking up the rest of the world to the dark agenda of control and technocracy hidden beneath the so-called health initiatives.
We need to know every single piece of information.
We've lived that freedom message today. We've been a walking symbol of what it means to be free.
While the world was reacting to the rapid expansion of tyranny, the Freedom Cell Network sought to promote solutions by launching the Greater Reset Activation in January 2021, a 5-day gathering designed to inspire, motivate, and activate freedom lovers into action. The Greater Reset highlighted the importance of localization, decentralization, individual and collective liberty, bodily autonomy, and freedom of choice.
The technocrats at the United Nations and the World Economic Forum are now hosting the Summit of the Future in New York City in September 2024.
At that meeting, governments of the world are expected to sign the so-called Pact for the Future. We reject their vision and the assumption that they speak for humanity. Join us in September for the People's Reset UK, our summit for our future.
Over 3 days, we will gather in community, celebrating our victories and successes, whilst continuing to highlight solutions under 5 holistic themes.
Liberate your mind, body, and spirit.
Permaculture and food independence.
Building parallel networks.
Empowering technology.
And building free and conscious communities. 24 top-notch speakers, including Neil Oliver, Charles Dowding, Dan Aston Gregory, Nigel Hallett, John and Rebecca Bush, and many more.
We'll also be hosting the People's Reset concert featuring international artist DubFX, as well as Presence, 33, and more talented performers to come. Join us in Bath in September 2024 as we collaborate and build the parallel systems of the future.
Join us for the next evolution of the Greater Reset.
Join us for the People's Reset UK. Visit thegreaterreset.org to learn more and to get your ticket today.
Welcome to episode 138 of the Conscious Resistance Live. My name is Derrick Broze, and that was the trailer for the upcoming People's Reset UK. As you heard there, visit thepeoplesreset.org or thegreaterreset.org if you want to learn more. I've talked about this at length for those of you who are watching on YouTube and may have missed the last 4 years of my work. We launched the Greater Reset movement in the middle of COVID-19 '84, and it was successful in the middle of lockdowns. We had 100 people show up in Mexico. We had 100,000 plus people tune in live in the middle of the lockdowns, and it just launched a movement, a worldwide movement of people from all over the world who are concerned about solutions, not politics, not fighting, not apathy, but actually trying to unplug from the systems and build new systems. If you're interested in that, which is fundamentally what my message is about, I encourage you to check out thegreaterreset.org. I will be in the UK I think not all of September, but the last 2 weeks of September going into October for the People's Reset in Bath. I'm also potentially doing an event in North Wales, and I will be doing an event on October 5th in Denmark, in Copenhagen, Denmark. I'll be doing a talk, and I'll share more about that very soon. And that's part of a little mini UK tour I'm putting together as we do the People's Reset. And tonight we got several stories we're going to get into. This is going to be a bit more of a busy show. I usually only cover 2 main stories. Tonight I've got 3 at least, maybe 4, and a couple of others sprinkled in there that I want to talk about. And so we're just going to get right to it. I've got some things to cover, and I've got dinner waiting for me in a little bit. So I gotta get this done. So let's go ahead and get started. First off, let me remind you to visit theconsciousresistance.com. This is the home for all of my content over the last decade plus. This is also where you can find the link to tonight's show notes. After the show, I will post them. Tonight's episode is called Eric Schmidt, Election 2024, UK Face Recognition, and All Eyes on September. It's quite a mouthful, but it's because there's multiple things going on, as there is always in the world every week. But at the same time, I see these issues as sort of converging upon each other as we near the U.S. Election in November, as we get closer to the Summit of the Future, the United Nations General Assembly week, happening in late September in New York City, where they are expected to sign the Pact for the Future and to declare a planetary emergency. And I've been talking about this for months now, and hopefully more and more people are paying attention. It seems like it. Tonight, we're going to get even deeper into that, and I will tell you some more about why you need to continue to spread the word about the Summit of the Future. But for now, again, remember, my website is theconsciousresistance.com. One thing I'll mention before we get into the items for tonight, as I said, I'm going to the UK for the People's Reset. I will be interviewing David Icke in September as part of the Pyramid of Power series. For those who haven't watched, the pyramidofpower.net is the place to watch my 17-part documentary series, which explores the question of who rules the world, who really manipulates the world behind the scenes, and trying to explore and debunk, like, is that idea, is that even a conspiracy, or is that a reality? And we've released 14 episodes so far. The 15th one, the pedo class, will be coming out later this month, August 2024. The 16th episode will be coming out later towards the end of the year, and probably early 2025 we'll have the penultimate episode, which is going to be all about answering that question. Okay, now that we've described the pyramid, who's at the top, or what's at the top exactly, or what organizations? And I'm going to be interviewing people like Daniel Echelon, David Icke, a number of other researchers, James Corbett, G. Edward Griffin, so many other people that I've already interviewed, Mark Passio, and getting them to answer that question, who do you think is at the top of this pyramid? And I think it'll be quite interesting. So I wrote here, I'll be interviewing David Icke. It was him who came up with the phrase mainstream alternative media that many of us have been calling out, especially if you guys tuned in last week and you saw my video with James Corbett, Aaron and Melissa of Truthstream News, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media, Dan Dix of Press for Truth, and myself. We talked about this fake, co-opted, claimed to be alternative independent media. David Icke's actually the person that came up with that term, mainstream alternative media. And as I say here, I don't agree with him on everything, and I don't need to do that to be able to do an interview or be interviewed by somebody. We can still find common ground and ask important questions. And the reason I say this is because mentioning last week, we put out a video with the indie media veterans. I titled the video, here, let me zoom in a little bit. I titled the video, it's called Debunking the False Political Hopium. I don't know why that looks like crap. Let me zoom back up. Debunking the False Political Hopium Paradigm with Indie Media Veterans. That was the interview with a panel of indie media veterans. And on my second YouTube channel, not the one that I'm currently streaming on right now, which is my old YouTube channel, which is about to hit 63,000 subscribers, but my newer one that I made a couple of years ago after being deleted, seems to be now more strict and censorship over there. They took down the video. They said it was medical misinformation. And David Icke retweeted this saying, but of course, the alternative media has been hijacked by the deep state. So why would deep state YouTube want this circulating? Look forward to talking with you soon, Derrick. So pretty cool. He tweeted my thing, and then he's commenting about our interview. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I don't have to agree with the guy on everything he's ever said in the world to think he has an interesting perspective that I want to pursue. So I'm excited because I think the more perspectives we get to answering the question, who really rules the world, the more interesting the documentary is going to be. Yes, I'm going to have my own conclusions and my own thoughts, but I want to interview as wide a perspective of people as possible so you guys can come to your own conclusions. That's what this is really all about at the end of the day. So looking forward to that. Now, before we go further, I want to talk to you guys about an issue I haven't spoke on in just a little bit, and that is the fact that I am currently suing the state of Texas. You might not have heard about this, especially those on YouTube who missed the last 4 years of my work, but you might remember that back in 2019, I ran for mayor of Houston to get a message out, to get on the local media, to get on TV, to get on radio, and talk about the ideas that are important to me. Individual liberty, bodily autonomy. In fact, back in 2019, the election was November 2019 in Houston, about 5 or 6 months before COVID. I was speaking out publicly and taking heat from local media, being called an anti-vaxxer for saying that people should have a choice about what they put in their body, for standing up for bodily autonomy. I ran in 2019. I didn't win mayor, obviously, but I reached a lot of people. I decided to do this again in 2023 to try to reach even more people, because I felt like, look, things have changed a lot since before COVID and now after COVID. I need to go out there and I need to try to hijack the political system for 6 months or so and get on as much media as possible, get on TV. And I was able to successfully do that for a period of time. Unfortunately, though, I was denied the ability to actually be on the ballot. So in 2019, I was on the ballot. People could go vote for me. They saw my name on there. And of course, this is all with the caveat that, as many of you know, I'm a voluntarist. I'm an anarchist. I don't even believe voting is the answer. but I was running to try to reach people. And yes, some people on the local level did put their faith and their hope in me and thought that maybe we could really change things. Unfortunately, it's so corrupted, I had no chance. You have to spend millions and millions of dollars to really have an impact, but we did reach people either way. So in 2023, when I decided to run, I knew that there was a chance that the mayor at the time, then on his way out, Sylvester Turner, which some of you may remember, I confronted him numerous times as I was making my 5G documentary, The 5G Trojan Horse, which you can find at theconsciousresistance.com under our documentaries tab. I confronted Sylvester Turner numerous times, had him running away from me because of his close ties to the big wireless industry, to the 5G industry, particularly Verizon Wireless in Houston. And he did not like me, and I ran in 2019 largely to just call him out, and because he kept ignoring me in city council, he kept running away from me at public events, laughing in my face, having his bodyguards push me around. And I figured, well, if I run for office and I'm on the debate stage, he can't run away from me. And I was able to do that in 2019. I had a similar idea in 2023, but I suspected that he might try to prevent me from running, even though he was on the way out. And this is because some of his friends, namely Sheila Jackson Lee, were also running for mayor of Houston. So I started running for mayor of Houston in 2023 in February, and I campaigned all the way till basically August. And that is at the point when the mayor's office denied my ballot application to place me on the ballot because they said, because I have a felony. I have a felony from 2005 when I was 20 years old, a non-violent, non-weapons charged drug possession charge, and I went and did my time, quote unquote, paid my debt to society. This is almost 20 years ago next year. And they said that that disqualified me from being on the ballot, according to the Texas election code. Now, I've covered some of this in other places. I will point you guys to my website, derrickbroze.com. If you do want to learn more about this, derrickbroze.com is my individual website, separate from theconsciousresistance.com. But it did serve as my mayor website as well while I was running. And you can see that I've written about this quite a bit. Basically, what happened is the mayor's office used the Texas election code to say that I was disqualified. The Texas election code is written in a very vague and ambiguous way. Some felons have been allowed to run in cities in Texas, including me in 2019. Nobody did anything about it. But this time, all of a sudden, it was an issue. And because I'm pretty good at getting media coverage, I was able to turn this into an issue and get on local media and make my name, my campaign, something that people were talking about, because we were being denied ballot access. And I had other candidates, including other mayoral candidates, sign a letter saying that they supported my right to run. And again, this is all, once again, with the caveat that I'm voluntarist. It's kind of weird for me to be fighting for the right to run for office. But more importantly, it's about the fact that the system is corrupted, and they want to keep people like myself out who are intelligent enough to communicate a clear message about freedom and liberty. And I didn't even mention, but in the 2023 campaign, I was endorsed by the Harris County Libertarian Party. I had showed up in the first poll at 7%, saying that 7% of likely voters might vote for me. And that was a pretty big boost from the beginning. I believe if I had continued to run all the way to November, I don't know if I would have run. I don't know if I would have won, but we definitely would have reached a lot more people. We would have been on the debate stage, on television, and prime time, and for both times of running for office. They don't want that because they know that I will call this system out directly, as I have in small local town halls, in debates, and others. But those aren't really televised. I put that footage out there. I put the message out there. I reached people. We connected with people. We had people putting Broze for Mayor yard signs out, putting up my shirt, putting on, wearing my shirts and putting up signs around the city. We had genuine support, and they were able to prevent me because of this Texas election code. So one of my supporters said, hey, look, if you want to sue Texas to try to overturn this, then I will help you make this happen. So I've been grateful enough and blessed enough to receive financial support from a handful of people. And I'll just be real. I mean, most of it is one person. Shout out to you. You know who you are. Thank you for the financial support to fund this lawsuit, which is going to cost about $15,000. We've paid about $10,000, I think, so far, to my lawyer. So I filed the lawsuit, and as expected, they denied the lawsuit initially. This is what my lawyer thought was going to happen. This was back in April when I found out that they had denied our first round. And then we filed an appeal. That appeal has now been filed as of July 2024 in Texas court. I'm going to be posting it on my website at derrickbroze.com very soon in case anybody wants to see it. But basically what we're arguing is that the Texas Constitution and the U.S. Constitution prevent the government from indefinitely barring somebody from running for office. Like, technically as a felon, I couldn't vote again. if I wanted to. I don't vote, but if I wanted to, I could do that. But I don't have the right to run for office. And the law is written in such a vague way that, like I said, sometimes they'll allow felons to run, sometimes they won't. So what we're asking for them to do is to at least put it on the record and to make it clear, are you disqualified if it's a violent crime, if it's drug-related crime, etc. They can't just have these ambiguous, codes, which is what the government does. Of course, an election code's not even a law anyways. But that's what the government does. They like to have things kind of ambiguous so that they can interpret it how they want to keep people out when they want and allow people they want in. And I'm one of the people they don't want in, so they've kept me out. And so we are still in the process of suing the state of Texas. And the reason I'm doing this video and sharing this with you guys right now is because I just got the update from my attorney that the appeal has officially been filed after being denied in the first round. And now we are in the waiting game. We expect to hear from the courts maybe in the next couple months. If they believe we have merit, then there will be some filings and some discussions and debates within the court, some arguments. But if not, they might deny the appeal again. And I think we have one more opportunity to appeal that if we choose to. And if not, then that's it. But ultimately, if I do succeed in this next round, we suspect that it's going to go to the Texas Supreme Court to decide if this is constitutional or not, the way the Texas election code is written. And I want to make this clear. I don't necessarily think that I will ever run for mayor of Houston again. I don't even live in Houston right now. I went back to Houston from Mexico specifically to run for office because I care that much. And I felt like, post-COVID, things are so crazy that we need to get the truth out as much as possible. So maybe I will decide to do it again in the future. I don't know. I'm just not really thinking in those terms right now. But in the process of running for mayor, I did meet a lot of really good people who also, like me, happened to be felons who made a mistake or committed some sort of alleged crime when they were younger. And I say alleged because I don't believe in this idea of victimless crimes. If there's no victim, there's no crime. Same thing for me. I was abusing drugs, but I was harming myself. I needed help not to be thrown into a cage with a bunch of other hardened criminals. Thankfully, I had the wherewithal within me to pull myself out of that and to turn my life around. But not everybody has that opportunity. When you get out of prison and you have a felony and it's an exit, we call it a bullseye on your back, it's hard for you to get a job. It's hard for you to get rented certain places. And so if somebody, like some of these good people I met who are community activists in Houston, happens to have a felony from however many years ago, and they decide that they believe the best way to serve their community is to run for office, even if that's not something I really believe in, I think they should have the right to do that. And so this lawsuit is really about trying to overturn a bad law. And also at the same time, how often do you get a chance to sue the government? I think it's great, right? And I'm gracious to the person that's helping me do that. I hope we're able to beat Texas in court and overturn this, whether or not I ever use it or not. But if we could get it on the books and say, hey, if you are a felon, if you go to prison and you do your time, you did the crime, you do your time, then you are not only given the right to vote, but the right to run for office. That would be great. We get to overturn some bad law. If not, oh well, I tried and I got to sue the government in the process. So that's that. I just wanted to update you guys on that and share a little bit about what I've been doing with that lawsuit, because I know, again, some of you who've been following me on YouTube and you don't listen to me when I tell you, don't follow me on YouTube, follow me elsewhere, you might have missed that one. Now let's go to our next story of the night. This is just going to be a brief update. You guys know that in the days following the alleged assassination attempt on Donald Trump, yes, I say alleged because I still don't trust the whole thing and I don't know what to make of it yet. But in the days following that event, I wrote an article for Last American Vagabond outlining the various holes in the story that I was seeing, the potentials of, could it be staged, faked, etc. And I did a video breakdown of that. And you can find that at theconsciousresistance.com. And I just wanted to do a brief update because this is fairly new, just in the last couple days, from the Wall Street Journal. Videos show police at Trump rally airing frustration with the Secret Service. This is brand new. Police body cam footage obtained by the Journal reveals moments after the former president was shot. And in these videos, a local Pennsylvania police officer with the Butler Township officer, there's officers running place, and one of the officers says, I fucking told them they needed to post fucking guys over here. I told them that fucking Tuesday. I talked to the Secret Service guys. They're like, yeah, no problem. We're going to post guys over there. And he's talking about warning the Secret Service days ahead of the alleged shooting of the rally about the warehouse and saying, like, hey, we need to put somebody up on that roof to make sure that, that angle's covered. And then after the shooting happens, this guy who is unidentified, this officer is pissed off and, He's saying, you know, F this, because he says, I told these people. And as the Wall Street Journal here writes, it says, the footage paints a more complete picture of the anger and frustration moments after Thomas Matthew Crooks was able to fire 8 shots at the former president from an AR-style assault rifle. And, you know, I don't even really like repeating these stories because, you know, I know that they say somebody was killed and people were injured, and I'm okay with that, right? I'm not saying nobody died or anything, but I also don't know that I 100% believe that. You know, be mad at me if you like. But this just more evidence that what we were told is, you know, that there's holes in the story. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because, like I said, I've already done a video and my thoughts are pretty much still the same as I, you know, said in the days after the shooting. But to me, this is part of this, the overall narrative of, with false flag events, and I'm not saying this one is, but it smells like it, with false flag events, it typically falls in one of 2 categories, my hop or lie hop. They made it happen on purpose or they let it happen on purpose. This seems to be a case of somebody maybe let it, whatever it is exactly, because like I said, I'm not even sure which elements of this story are true, but either way, stories like this, they fit within that lie hop narrative. Now, that could mean that somebody did let it happen on purpose, or it also could mean that somebody wants us to believe that someone let it happen on purpose. I know it's kind of getting convoluted here, but I'm trying to be objective about it because I can't stand, and please remind me later to talk about disinformation. If anybody here can make a mental note, remind me after I get through the stories towards the end when I start talking about ending to talk about disinformation. Disinformation within the so-called truth community. But because of that, a lot of people speak open, you know, they speak so confidently, oh, this is what's happening, this is what's happening, when they don't fucking know. And most of these people online are not real journalists anyways, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything like that, but I know that I do the on-the-ground research. I pick up the phone, I send emails and try to talk to people. Most of the people out there who claim to have sources about things or don't even, you know, they're just repeating shit they've seen online or some rumor they heard on Twitter, right? So we got to be better than that. So none of us really know what happened at this point, but this piece of evidence, this piece of the puzzle makes things even more weird. All right, so the first big story of the night is going to be about my brand new article, which is not published yet. It's actually publishing tomorrow, Tuesday. So if you're watching this after the fact, it'll likely be in the show notes, a link to it. I'm calling it, What Role Will Google's Eric Schmidt Play in Election 2024? And this is, as obviously by the title, about Eric Schmidt. And Eric Schmidt is the former CEO of Google, former advisor to Alphabet, Google's parent company, very, very deeply involved in the Democratic Party, supporting them and funding them, and also deeply involved in the Biden White House at the moment, as we're going to find out here. He was also deeply involved in the Obama White House, as we know from White House logs and records and employment records of how many people are kind of connected to this nexus of Eric Schmidt. So I'm going to cover what will be in my article coming out tomorrow. I'm still going to encourage you guys to read it and to share it. I think it's more important to actually read and share. I create video content because I know some of you won't read, no matter how hard we try to get you to. But for those who do read, please share the article once it's published. But let's go ahead. Let's dive into this now. So as I said, it's called Eric Schmidt and the 2024 election. What role will he be playing in this 2024 election? So the reason I'm focusing on him is because if you remember my last article from a week or two ago, let me go ahead and pull that one up. It was focused on the so-called right wing of the big tech industry and like the big, the Bitcoin bros, how Peter Thiel is, getting behind JD Vance, and they're all getting behind Bitcoin, and David Sachs and Elon Musk, obviously, and other, allegedly right-wing big tech guys, executives are embracing Donald Trump, and they're also funding Trump. There's also some connections between the Bitcoin industry. There's also some weird connections to Rumble that so many of you are so fond of. And this painted a picture of how the right side of the big tech industry, like I said, the Peter Thiels and others, are embracing Donald Trump. Now, in a way, this article here about Eric Schmidt is kind of a counter to that, because Eric Schmidt, as I mentioned, is a prominent supporter of the Democratic Party. And he has been for years. He's given billions of dollars. He has donated to Republicans, sure, let's be objective here. But he's donated vastly more to Democrats. Now, interesting thing here, earlier this month, Reid Hoffman, who is a tech investor, billionaire co-founder of LinkedIn, he called for Silicon Valley, which is California, San Francisco, to, quote, get behind Vice President Kamala Harris, a Democratic Party presidential candidate. And he said, quote, in this moment, we need a leader who recognizes that innovation is the key to economic prosperity, national security, and breakthrough progress on climate change and other pressing issues. Reid Hoffman, who again is of LinkedIn fame, billionaire, by the way, also a former associate of Jeffrey Epstein, who's also known for funding disinformation tactics. You should check out that link. He mostly made economic arguments about supporting Kamala over Trump. He basically said that another Trump administration is going to be too chaotic for their industry, and that they need to have somebody in office who will protect their interests. He said, quote, whoever assumes the presidency in 2025 will do so when AI, robotics, autonomous vehicles, genetic engineering, blockchain, and decentralized finance, advanced manufacturing, and other key innovation industries will be ensuring global competitiveness than they do now. So he's making the case. He's making the case that basically, if you want all these fancy things, blockchain, genetic engineering, autonomous vehicles, robotics, that Kamala's more likely to support it than Trump. And that's debatable or whatever, but let's kind of continue and see where this is going. So Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn billionaire, publishes a New York Times op-ed, says Silicon Valley needs to get behind Kamala. And one of the people who is largely part of that Silicon Valley is Eric Schmidt. Again, the former CEO of Google, former board member and advisor to Alphabet Inc., the parent company to Google. He's also seen as an expert on AI. He wrote a book called The Age of AI and Our Human Future with Henry Kissinger, who's, of course, now deceased, former U.S. Secretary of State and accused war criminal. Schmidt has been donating to the Democratic Party candidates for years now. In 2020 alone, he donated millions of dollars to Democratic Party candidates, 2020 and 2022. And in 2014, he was actually part of a task force which was put together by the Democrats to help them figure out how to win elections and how they can use technology and avoid embarrassing losses. And he hasn't really made many public statements. He's not like an Elon Musk or a Peter Thiel even. He's not very public for so much, for most of his life. In fact, I had to dig pretty deep to find anything about his thoughts on the 2024 election. And I did find some interesting things. But for the most part, he's been kind of quiet. The only thing he has talked about is that we need to be prepared to fight misinformation related to the election. So at an April event just a couple of months ago, hosted by the Aspen Institute and something called the Institute for Global Politics, Schmidt spoke at this event with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton about the threats that artificial intelligence poses to U.S. elections. And this organization that hosted the event, the Institute for Global Politics, Eric Schmidt is sitting on the board of the Institute, and this organization was founded at Columbia University. And if you know the research and the history of the technocracy movement, as I've mentioned recently, Columbia University is really the birthplace for it. And Hillary Clinton is the faculty advisory board chair. She's basically the main chick there at the Institute for Global Politics, and Eric Schmidt is sitting on the board. So they're both involved in this organization. They're both involved in this event in April. And Hillary Clinton says, we quote, we need a different system under which tech companies, and we're mostly talking about social media platforms, operate. I think they will continue to make an enormous amount of money if they change their algorithms to prevent the kind of harm that is caused by sending people to the lowest common denominator every time they log on. You've got to stop this reward for this kind of negative content. So basically saying we need to stop promoting the ugly, divisive internet. Now, Eric Schmidt, for his part, he was warning about election misinformation that's going to be caused by AI. He said that we need to use blockchain technology to track content creation in an alleged attempt to stop the spread of fake news. And if you follow my work or my reporting on TLAB, you know that blockchain is a tool. Yes, there are some really scary use cases for it. There's also some really awesome use cases, like it's a blockchain-based platform like Odyssey, which I'm currently live streaming on right now, which is censorship-free and it's all content is placed on that blockchain. That's a beautiful idea. It can't be deleted. It can't be taken away. It lives there one way or the other. Now, that doesn't mean the technocrats can't try to stop you from accessing the internet, but the content is still there. So blockchain is just a tool. But in the ways that Eric Schmidt's calling for, it's definitely going to be about control. He said, quote, there's infrastructure that would be very helpful. The best design that I am familiar with is blockchain-based. So if everyone knew that this piece of information showed up here, you can then understand how did it get there, who pushed it, who amplified it. And overall, he basically is saying that he's trying to make the internet better, to stop making it be a toxic place for women and other I guess populations. Now, that was in April. Go back 4 months prior to his meeting with Hillary Clinton to December 2023, and Eric Schmidt wrote this op-ed piece for MIT detailing a 6-point plan for fighting misinformation. And some of these suggestions, they kind of seem innocuous or benign, like, okay, we should identify deep fakes. That probably would be useful. Investing in research, filtering advertisers. Now, we could get deeper into that and argue whether or not those really are useful. But the ones that really seem worrisome to me is that he suggests that internet users should have to identify themselves to prove that they're not bots. And I will say this, my friends, that overall, this is a part of a larger push that we've seen in recent years to try to make it where we have to log on, like we have to show an ID to get on the internet in some capacity. This is not the first attempt to do this. Eric Schmidt's not the first person to propose this. He won't be the last. So we need to be prepared for that. There's going to be efforts. They will continue to try to say, because of misinformation, because of hackers or cybersecurity or whatever, for your safety, etc., you're going to need an internet ID. And we promise we won't share your data, but at least this way we can know every person who logs on everywhere, and it'll keep us all safe. It's all this freedom, sell your freedom in the name of security. So under a section in his 6-point plan titled Verify Human Users, Eric Schmidt writes, quote, "We need to distinguish humans who using social media from bots, holding both accountable if laws or policies are violated." He claims that this wouldn't involve divulging identities. Instead, he says a new system, which would be similar to Uber's driver verification system, should be adopted. But he said that this would mean that social media companies, quote, "authenticate the human behind each account and introduced reputation-based functionality." So a reputation-based system based on whether the content you share is, quote, fake news, disinformation, etc. So think about that. Somebody like me is going to have a very low reputation-based score. And think about this. Where have you heard this before? Reputation-based? Yeah, again, you could do this like a Yelp, where the restaurant is reputation, it's based on user reviews, and it can work out great. But we've also seen how this can go wrong. And in this case, he's talking about a social credit score. That's what this eventually leads to. Sure, it starts out as an internet ID. It's probably connected to your digital ID. It's probably connected to your central bank digital currency, and it has a reputation-based functionality on it that will eventually be applied to you, your life, your standing, your number, your place in life. This is a dangerous thing. He also calls for, quote, knowing every source by using a timestamp and an encrypted and not removable IP address, which would guarantee an identifiable point of origin. He said that, quote, bad actors could then be deprioritized or banned. He also called for stepping up efforts to improve identification of VPNs. And if you don't know what a VPN is, a virtual private network, it's one of the ways that you can sort of hide your location online. Now, it's not a perfect tool. You know, if you're giving away your ID while you're buying your VPN, then people can still find you eventually. But it is one tool in your privacy toolkit on the internet. And he's saying they need to step up efforts to improve identification of VPNs so that users can't hide their locations in this system. So Eric Schmidt has been quiet, but at the same time, he's meeting with Hillary Clinton in April. He's writing an article last year about a 6-point plan to protect the election security from misinformation, AI, etc. And I'm going to go a little deeper here before we end this story about Eric Schmidt. Eric Schmidt. In 2023, Axios reported that Schmidt was seriously considering a proposal which would give him $1 million to explore new ways artificial intelligence could be leveraged to help the Democrats win elections. This proposal was from 1-1 Ventures, and you know, even though he decided not to do it, at least is what we're told, which is kind of interesting because he has these interests in elections. Obviously, he's had interest in artificial intelligence. So when those two things converge, why wouldn't he choose to do that? But Axios reported, quote, Schmidt is likely to continue looking into that venture, the venture being how to help Democrats win elections, in time for the 2024 elections. So this isn't a surprise, though, because as I mentioned earlier, he's written a book on AI. He actually is the head of, or the chair of, the Biden administration AI Commission. Its full title is the National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence. It was created during the Trump administration in 2018 to study artificial intelligence, and Schmidt has been involved in this since 2020, 2021. And he has actually been a major part of the Biden White House, and like I briefly mentioned earlier, going back to the Obama White House. And There's a really good investigation from 2021 from the American Prospect outlet that talks about Eric Schmidt's ties to this AI contractor called Rebellion Defense, and how he's using his ties with Rebellion Defense to get more access to the White House. I also found that in March 2022, Politico reported that Schmidt's, quote, fingerprints are all over Biden's science office. And just again, talking about how he's used he's been literally paying government employees out of his own salary from his own charities, which probably also allows him to hide certain bits of the money, I think. But overall, you can see that he's just all up in the White House right now. And there's also articles talking about Eric Schmidt and his involvement with the U.S. military, because, again, he's interested in artificial intelligence, he's interested in drones, and he's interested in putting those two things together. And it was reported in early 2024, just this year, by Forbes, that he is working on a, quote, clandestine project related to drones. And the article here says, quote, since leaving his chairman role at Google in 2017, Schmidt has poured much of his time and his wealth into bridging the interests of Silicon Valley and the Pentagon through various advisory committees, think tanks, and his vast startup portfolio. He even said that he was trying to build a more advanced Department of Defense and a, quote, better warfighting system. But his better warfighting system sounds a lot like the 5G smart city dystopia that the World Economic Forum and others talk about, and many of us are working to avoid. He said, quote, it would build a large number of inexpensive devices that were highly mobile, that were attritable, and those devices or drones would have sensors or weapons, and they would be networked together. So he's got a lot of connections to the military, to the White House, obviously to big tech and artificial intelligence and all that knowledge. And this is where I want to wrap this story up, because this is the whole point. I call this last section the illusion of choice. Let's go back to where the article started. I mentioned that LinkedIn billionaire Reid Hoffman put out an article saying Silicon Valley needs to get behind Kamala Harris. I also mentioned that recently I've reported that some of Silicon Valley and big tech is embracing Trump and Bitcoin and Rumble, etc. And so there appears to be this divide between them. And Harris is being promoted by Hoffman and others as the alternative to Trump. You know, she's saying, like, we can't have another Trump presidency because it'll be a carnival of chaos, et cetera, et cetera. So they're promoting her as stability. But as I wrote here, his attempt to contrast Harris and Trump, it actually rings hollow when you recognize that both candidates, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, and both parties receive funding and moral support from individuals with deep ties to the ruling class behind the political puppets, specifically the Bilderberg Group. Yes, my friends, if you didn't know this, Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, is actually a steering committee member of the secretive Bilderberg Group. And if you don't know about the Bilderberg Group, I'm guessing you just started, and I encourage you to go do some research and get back here. But they've been meeting since 1954, around May and June, always in a sort of unknown location to the last minute. They met just a couple months ago in Madrid, Spain in May, and they now have a website and a public face, but 10, 15 years ago, they were even more secretive and they were still a conspiracy. Now we know they exist, but we're told that they're just, it's just a rich kids club. Don't pay any attention to the politicians and prime ministers and media and celebrities and academics and other people meeting there. Don't worry about it. So Eric Schmidt is a steering committee member of the Bilderberg Group. And guess who else is? Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel was also at the May 2024 Bilderberg meeting because, of course, he's a steering committee member. So, again, the right wing of big tech is getting behind Trump and saying that this is a defensive move to protect their industry from the encroachment of the Biden administration, which has been going after crypto in different ways and tech in general. And then Reid Hoffman and the kind of left-wing big tech is saying, let's get behind Kamala to protect the industry and protect our interests. And this gives the appearance that there is some sort of divide within big tech, with the left-wing rallying behind Kamala and the right-wing rallying behind Trump. And sure, there could be some, let's just be real. There's probably some level of truth to that, that some people do hate Trump and some people don't like Kamala, etc. So I'm not saying nobody feels that way or that it's a total lie. But the reality is that this is really, as I said, an illusion of choice, because what's important is to understand that both Thiel and Schmidt are deeply involved in the Bilderberg Group and have been regular attendees for years. And one side is funding the Democrat Party and looking for ways to help the Democrats win elections and all this sort of stuff. And then the other side, Peter Thiel, is funding Trump and J.D. Vance and Rumble and other things like this. And the members of the Bilderberg Group, though, they are really the closest approximation we have of the true power within the United States and the world at large. I'm not saying the pyramid stops with the Bilderberg Group. I think it goes even deeper than them. But absolutely, they represent the real power that is actually behind presidential puppets and prime ministers. So at the end of the day, no matter who Americans are going to vote for, guess what? A Bilderberg-backed candidate is going to be in the White House. Whether that's Kamala Harris with all her support from Google's Eric Schmidt and Reid Hoffman and all that swamp of people going back to the Bilderberg Group, or whether it's Donald Trump and all of that swamp of people going back to Peter Thiel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The point is, no matter who wins the election, the American people are going to lose because the Bilderbergers are still going to have, at the very least, sway. And I would say probably more than just sway. They probably got control over these people, but for sure, they've got some sway over them. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Is that surprising to you? Is that new to you? I think that this is something that more and more people need to understand, that we are being provided with this illusion of choice. We're being told that, of course, like neither of these candidates are worth your time. Let's be real. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, I know people out there, but Derrick, what else are we going to do? I got to vote for the lesser of two evils. Whatever. You've also got RFK, but guess what? He's a Zionist too, and he supports the genocide that's going on. So at the end of the day, you're going to get Bilderbergers, Zionists, and more of the same, right? More of the same you can believe in. That's what it's always comes down to. And this is why, my friends, the real answers are not to be found in politics. The real answers are to be found in you. Go find the closest mirror you have. Look yourself in the mirror and recognize that you are the person you've been waiting for. There's no person going to ride in on a white horse to save the day. I'm sorry, it's just not going to work out that way. There are no white hats in waiting. They're going to come round up the bad guys and have military tribunals, and you don't have to do things. That's a fantasy you're living in because you don't want to accept the fact that you have to actually change your life if you want to live free, that nobody's going to come save you. And I know that that's scary. I empathize with you. I have compassion. But if you don't grow up and if you don't accept that and step up to the plate, you're selling out your children and their children and the coming generations. You're selling out your ancestors because you're too afraid to acknowledge that you've been fooled, that you've been manipulated, and that you have been programmed to believe the matrix that you live in is reality. And you've been programmed to believe that the only way to affect change is the game that they have shown you. They created this whole system, this whole game. And on that, there are different pieces and moves you can make. One of those is you can vote. One of those is you can run for office. One of those is you can be violent. You can throw bricks through windows. You can fight your neighbors in the streets. You can post angry things online. You can be apathetic and just check out of society and tune in and drop out, right? But all of those things are still within this paradigm of the game that they've created. They know how to handle those actions. What they don't know how to handle is the moment we say, you know what? I'm done playing. I'm going to walk away and build something better because I'm not going to show my children and my friends and family that I care about that participated in evil by reducing myself to voting for a lesser of evils and to settle for something or buying into cult worship of liars and criminals and political hacks. That's behavior that other people should model. Because why would you want your children to believe in that? Why would you want them to think that that is normal, that that is acceptable? Instead, you have the opportunity that is to be a living example of an empowered human being that recognizes that the Creator breathed life into you and put you here on this planet for a purpose and for a reason, and that is to be a shining example of an empowered, healing, growing human being. And the moment you do that, you ripple that lesson down to your young ones, to your friends and family, and your spheres of influence, and more people start to act in that way. We learn from each other, we inspire each other, instead of teaching each other that, yeah, you know what, sometimes we just got to accept a little bit of evil. I know it's not ideal, but that's just the way things are. Fuck that. We can create a better world if we choose to, guys. I'll be right back.
Are you using your phone, or is it using you? Rise above mass surveillance and discover a phone that protects your privacy and communications.
Above Phone does everything your old phone does, without tracking you, while giving you complete control over your phone and apps. We are better than big tech. It works with any cell service. No forced logins. No advertising or tracking. Download apps privately. Control your phone and its apps with secure hardware. Introducing Above Suite. Protects your internet traffic. Private email on any device. Video call with friends privately. Encrypted chat, calls, and internet phone. Protect your searches and get results. Don't worry if you're new. Every phone includes a free 45-minute live call. You also get free email and chat support, free guides, and video courses. We can take back our technology. We're here to help with tools and education. You have the power.
Rise above with Above Phone.
AbovePhone.com.
Get yourself one. Here, let me make sure you can see that in a second. Go to abovephone.com/dbros, and I think you can also, do that. You'll save up to $50. This is not some fake privacy phone connected to, what was the guy, Eric Prince of Blackwater out there selling privacy phones, and a lot of folks in the mainstream alternative media promoting it. This is real privacy phones by a company, by my friend who I trust, who I know. Dive in, guys. It's not too late. Abovephone.com/dbros. Also, that's a way to support my work as well if you want to get into that. So we're going to continue our discussion. I will get to some comments here in just a little bit, but right now we got to continue on. There's quite a bit to get into. Let's go ahead and pick it up with what's been going on in the UK. You know, there's going to be a little theme running through the next couple stories here, and that is the old Hegelian dialectic, the problem, reaction, solution that so many of us have had to learn about over the years in our process of waking up. What does that mean, problem, reaction, solution? It simply means that the powers that wish they were, the predator class, the psychopaths, will never let a good crisis go to waste. This is their, one of their famous quotes. They are always going to try to use every crisis they can to bring about the goals that they wanted the entire time. And in this case, this would be like the technocratic state. This would be a world with cameras and facial recognition and heat detection and social credit scores, CBDCs, digital IDs, all the things that you've heard me talk about. And if you don't know my book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. That is what I've been warning about, that this is going to come. And here we are seeing it in the UK. Now, for those who haven't been paying attention, there were some stabbings of children a couple of weeks ago in the UK. And it created a response where there have been, you could call them anti-Muslim, anti-immigration protests breaking out across the UK. And look, let me say this to my friends out there in the UK and Europe. I get it. You guys are dealing with the sort of immigration, weaponized immigration in a way that we are dealing with in a different way in the US. There's weaponized immigration going on at the southern border. I'm here in Mexico, and even Mexico has started to reject people coming from further south who are coming up and trying to make their way to the US. And of course, we have to acknowledge that many of these people are trying to get away from their homes because of things that were caused by the U.S. foreign policy and by the U.S. funding cartels in other countries, funding and training death squads, funding gangs. This is all documented history, the CIA, etc. So there's that going on. There's economic situations. But unfortunately, because of the conflict, some of these right-wing, and I say right-wing because they would consider themselves a nationalist. Maybe some of them consider themselves white nationalists. I'm not throwing that term around, but some people do wear that label purposefully, who then come on the scene and say, see, guys, all of our problems are related to these immigrants that are coming in. It's them that are screwing everything up. It's them. They don't understand Western morality and Western principles and values, and it's just not going to work. Our cultures can't mix. Now, I'm from Houston, Texas, which is one of the most diverse cities in the United States, where there's 170-something languages spoken, and there's all kinds of great food and mixing of people. And sure, different communities have their enclaves and things like that. But by and large, everybody's mixed, and it's a beautiful thing. There is a good, diversity can be a positive thing. But forced assimilation, forced immigration is not a. You shouldn't be forced to associate with somebody. You have the freedom to disassociate. I get all that. And I also get that there are sometimes real problems when cultural barriers do clash. With all that said, still, you must understand that the technocrats are going to try to play us against each other, to try to divide us against each other, to get you to say, it's just those brown immigrants from that country, it's just those Muslims, it's their fault, so let's go protest, let's go riot, let's go try to burn down the mosque or burn down the temples and things of that sort. And that's kind of what we're seeing go on in the UK. And I need to pull up another article. Let me go ahead and pull that up, because I know some of you over there in the UK, you pay attention to this gentleman, Tommy Robinson. And I can't say that I've always followed his career, but I have always seen him as a provocateur. And there's a great article here on Mint Press News, Tommy Robinson and the Zionist Agenda, the hidden forces behind the UK race riots. I will include this in the show notes as well. That's worth looking at. But what I want to focus on is this problem, reaction, solution. So there's a crime, some young children are stabbed, which, by the way, I also saw the police in the UK tweet that the children have all been released. They're on the way to better health. That doesn't mean it's, all's done and forgiven. But if you really care about the kids, most of them did survive the attacks. I think a couple people died, unfortunately. But the response has been this aggressive, anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim thing, and I'm not convinced it's all legitimate. Yes, there are people, like we saw with the Black Lives Matter, there are legitimate people who come and participate in these things and have concerns, and I'm not saying all those people are violent or dangerous extremists, but some people definitely come in there with the intentions. Like I would say Tommy Robinson, you shouldn't trust this guy, and the Zionist people that are connected to him and surrounded with him. And then as things get more violent, and as you see, there's cars being lit on fire, there's just all kinds of stuff going on, you get UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer saying that they're going to increase the use of live facial recognition. He says it's not protest, it's not legitimate, it's crime and violent disorder, and assault on the rule of law and the execution of justice. And so, on behalf of the British people who expect their values and their security to be upheld, we will put a stop to it. He announced a new national violent disorder program that will consider broader use of facial recognition technology, which is already used by some police forces around the country. These thugs are mobile. They move from community to community, and we must have a policing response that can do the same. Shared intelligence, wider deployment of facial recognition technology, and preventative action. Criminal behavior orders to restrict their movement before they can even board a train, in just the same way we do with football hooligans. So it starts with the football hooligans, which are definitely can be assholes for sure. And then it goes to just people who are saying the wrong things. And I'm sure by now you guys have also heard that a woman, I believe, has been sentenced to prison in the UK for posting inaccurate information related to these protests or riots, whatever you want to call them. But this is just an example. The problem, reaction, solution. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Here's another example. Here's the Starmer from The Guardian. Starmer's live facial recognition plan would usher in national ID, campaigners say. The PM is accused of ignoring civil rights and aping autocracies as he proposes new powers after the far-right unrest. I mean, it couldn't be more obvious to me. Even if, again, there's probably legitimate people out there going and protesting and angry, and, I've heard people say, no, Derrick, you don't understand. This is time. It's time for us to stand up. And you're playing right into the hands of people who want there to be a civil war so they can enact order out of chaos. They thrive on chaos. And that's what's going on here. Is people are either falling into a trap and going and participating and encouraging violence, which then the state uses to push the plans they had all along, or people are just kind of buying into the propaganda. And one way or the other, it's dividing us from each other. And in the end, we'll all be slaves if we can't find a way to work together. Civil liberties campaigners have said that a proposal made by Keir Starmer on Thursday to expand the use of live facial recognition technology would amount to the effective introduction of a national ID card system based on people's faces. Silke Carlo, the director of Big Brother Watch, said it was ironic the new prime minister was suggesting a greater use of facial matching on the same day that an EU-wide law largely banning real-time surveillance tech came into force. Carlo said, expanding live facial recognition means millions of innocent Britons being subjected to automatic ID checks. These are the surveillance tactics of China and Russia, and Starmer seems ignorant of the civil liberties implications. Live facial recognition has until now largely been used in the UK by the Met Police and South Wales Police as a real-time aid to help officers, including at public events. It is capable of scanning more than 100 faces a minute for identification. But Starmer suggested it should be deployed more widely after the stabbing and murder of 3 girls in Southport, Lancashire. Promising to create a national police capability to tackling the rioting, the new prime minister said the forces needed to work better together, sharing intelligence, etc., etc. So it's clearly expanding, and I would argue this is exactly what this is about. This is what we know has been coming. Now, let me show you another example. Look, in the United States, Wicked, which is a company, their facial recognition is now rolling out at all NFL stadiums starting 4 days ago. So as of 4 days ago, the NFL has now started to use facial recognition for all the stadiums. They said they're doing it to cramp down on fake credentials. So for digital credentialing at all 30 stadiums, starting with preseason games on August 8th, which was just a couple of days ago, 32 teams will now be using Wicket to streamline and ensure the credentialing program. The selfie-based facial biometric system runs in tandem with accreditation software from Accredit Solutions, etc. So it's expanding now in the sports. And how many people you think are going to protest it? The people who love sports. Again, not all people are brain dead who like sports. Some people just enjoy it in a pastime. It's not, it doesn't make them sheep. But a lot of people don't care about privacy. They just want to go watch the sports ball. They just want to see their favorite team win or lose. They don't give a damn if they have to give up their face, because you know what? They've already been conditioned. They've been doing that their entire life. They've already been putting their face on Facebook. They've already got used to showing their face to open their phone. They've already been doing thumbprints and things like that. It's not a big change. Right now, I just got to show my face to watch a football game. And oh, by the way, all the airports are now starting to roll out facial recognition in the United States. They're still doing it in international terminals, but they're definitely expanding it. I was talking about that recently, that you can opt out of those things. They're not mandatory yet. But just look at this, my friends. It's happening in the UK based on riots, they're telling us. It's happening in the NFL to stop fake credentials and entertainment. And then we also have this. Here's another one. The race to become the world's first document-free airport. This was a little hit piece, propaganda piece posted by CNN Travel last week, talking about this new airport in, I think it's Dubai. Imagine boarding a flight without showing your passport, ID, or even ticket once at the airport. By 2025, this might be the case at Abu Dhabi Zayed International Airport. The airport is known for its high-tech infrastructure and was recently praised by Elon Musk, of course, with the words, the U.S. needs to catch up. Oh, that's right, Elon. Now it's launching its Smart Travel project, which is aimed to install biometric sensors at every identification checkpoint of the airport, from check-in counters to immigration booths, duty-free tills, airline lounges, and boarding gates. Biometrics are the biological measures that identify us as individuals. The sensors mean that at any point where a document is required for access, the passenger's identity and travel status can be verified by facial or iris recognition. The tech is already being used at certain sectors of the airport, but it's going to expand to across the entire passenger flow, and it'll be a breakthrough. We're expanding to 9 touch points, and this would be a world first. It's designed with no pre-enrollment required. Passengers are automatically recognized and authenticated as they move through the airport, significantly speeding up the entire process. So now they're selling it as it's convenient, it's faster, you don't have to talk to a human. They're going to sell this technocratic state with fear. Oh my God, keep us safe from the riots and the Muslims and the stabbings with facial recognition. Oh, keep us safe from the fake tickets to the NFL games with facial recognition. And give us a free, entertaining, a touch-free, entertaining, quick airport experience with facial recognition. It's all going to come down to this. And I warned about this in my 2022 book, the second edition of my book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, which you can download for free at theconsciousresistance.com/how-to. theconsciousresistance.com/how-to. You can get it in Spanish, French, German. You can listen to the audiobook for free. Check it out. And what I write in the book, let's go ahead and check it out. Control F, convenience. So what I'm describing here is that people are already starting to buy into these systems based on convenience. Right here I say, another aspect of the technocratic world is the growing use of surveillance tools like facial recognition, voice detection, 24/7 closed-circuit TV cameras, artificial intelligence, algorithmic manipulation, cell phone tracking, social media monitoring, location tracking, digital eavesdropping via smart devices, and the overall push towards a smart grid powered by 5G. Of course, these technologies are not promoted as surveillance tools, but rather as tools for safety, convenience, and education and profit. However, the result is the same. Individuals and companies promoting technological solutions to the world's ills, resulting in a loss of freedoms and more centralized control. Now, another piece here, I talk about the convenient and the entertainment aspect. As of 2020, the majority of the people in the developed world have adopted some form of digital tech. Cell phones, tablets, laptops, desktops, or wearable digital technology. The middle class and higher are falling in line with the latest fad of smart everything, surrounding themselves with the technology that can listen, watch, and record their daily lives. from doorbell cameras to home assistants and TVs that are always snooping, the masses are voluntarily abandoning privacy in the name of entertainment and convenience. This is something I've been warning about for years. Now, here's the questions. This is what I wrote here. You must decide what you are willing to do for the coming generations. How will you change your daily behavior? Will you reject big tech, or will you make compromises out of convenience, accepting the next upgrade to your digital devices without concern for the terms and conditions? Will you learn about alternative currencies and quit the banks, or will you accept universal basic income in the form of a central bank digital currency? Will you accept forced masking and vaccinations for your children, or will you free them from the public indoctrination centers? Will you feed yourself and your family meals made of crickets and synthetic meats, or make the effort to grow your own food, or at the least support those in your local area who do? The answers to these questions and many more are going to determine your future. You are the only one who can either stand in your way or drive you to liberation. And that's what the message is about, my friends. This is what they're working towards. This is what all of this control is about. So whether we're talking about the UK riot situation, or we're talking about the facial recognition at the airports and touch-free airports, or we're talking about the NFL, these systems are expanding, and they're going to continue to expand. And we're about to go into our third main story for tonight. We're going to talk about the updates to the Summit of the Future, which is coming up next month in just over 5 weeks, I believe now, and how the United Nations is meeting, the World Economic Forum is meeting, the Club of Rome is meeting. All these organizations are getting together to prepare for September. They've got big plans for September, and meanwhile, most people have no idea these meetings are even going on. But what's important to recognize, my friends, is that they are going to use any tactics they can to expand their technocratic state, their vision of a world ruled by the technocratic experts, the scientific and technological elite, who will rule over us and charge us energy credits for the food we eat, for the travel we do, for our very own bodies and beings. And there will not be a way out of that system. That is why you need to be paying attention now and to think about getting out, because you're not going to vote your way out of this system, my friends. That's not going to happen. And if you wait till all your money in the bank is turned into CBDCs, digital dollars, then there's not going to be anything to do. You're going to have to make hard choices, and you need to make them now rather than later, because as I've been harping on lately, think about how you handled COVID 1984. In the middle of COVID, if you were forced to get a shot, to get a PCR test up your nose, or to wear a mask because you needed to get to the grocery store, because you needed to work to feed your family, because you needed to travel for whatever reason, and you did it even though you didn't want to, that is not a good thing. You need to try to say, okay, I want to do better next time. I want to be more prepared. I don't want to have to compromise by my values simply because I didn't prepare. Because I saw what was coming, and I've been watching podcasts and watching documentaries telling me how bad the world's getting, but I'm not actually doing anything about it. I'm just watching it like it's a freaking movie. But no, it's actually real life. This is real life. There are psychopaths who are hidden behind the scenes, manipulating us, gaslighting us, and trying to take over the world while painting themselves as the heroes. And they are going to use every single crisis they can to get their plan done. You need to wake up to this, my friends, and you need to make choices about how you interact with technologies and what you're willing to do to protect your privacy. Are you willing to fly once it becomes mandatory to submit to iris or facial recognition? What choices are you willing to make? What is your red line in the sand? Because if you don't know your values and principles, you're going to keep adjusting, and before you know it, you're going to be behind chains because you never drew the line in the sand, and you never stood firm, and you never said no. And that's what we need to get a lot more comfortable doing. Say it with me right now. Wherever you're at home, at the coffee shop, sitting down with friends and family, take a breath with me right now. Now say no. No. We need to get a lot more comfortable with that word. No, I will not let you inject my children with the poison. No, I will not submit to your tyranny just so I can eat today. No, I will not condone your genocide in other countries by taking funds from my pockets. No, I will not participate in the surveillance grid that you're building around me by bringing the technology into my homes. These are decisions and things we need to make. It's up to you to decide how you interact with different technologies, whether you fly, whether you don't, whether you opt out with the body scanner and get the pat down, whether you opt out of the facial recognition. Your choices are your own to make, but the point is, if you're awake and aware, you need to be more. You need to be an activator. You need to be motivated, because you can be awake and still not do shit about it. And I'm sorry, my friends, but it's too late in the game to not be doing shit about what's going on in the world. We got a lot coming up, and we're about to cover more when we get into this next story. I'm going to take another quick break, but before we do that, I want to mention this to you. I saw some questions about how much the above phone costs. I think the phones can be in the range of $700 to $800 up to $1,000 or more, depending on what you're trying to spend. But let me tell you this. I know a lot of people out there, maybe not in my audience, but a lot of people will spend $1,000 on a phone every time a new Apple phone or a new Google phone comes out or whatever. And those phones are spying on you, tracking you, etc. So why not invest if you're going to get a new phone, which I don't even use a phone. I don't use a phone at all. My partner, Miriam, she has the above phone, and it works great. It's amazing. It's got all kinds of decentralized apps. You can still listen to podcasts like me without having to go through Apple and Google. It's great. You have all sorts of tools. But if you're going to invest in yourself and your privacy, save up a little bit. Keep your crappy phone for a little while. Don't upgrade with the smartphone, big tech phone. And when you're ready, get the above phone. Invest in yourself because you matter. That's what's important here. We're going to take another quick break. We're going to get back with our third story, talking about the Summit of the Future, the Club of Rome, and everything that is coming up in September that you need to know about, my friends. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
So I've recently partnered with my friend Sean Hawkins of the company Cultivated Mind. He focuses on organic mushroom extracts, which are designed to help you physically, mentally, and maybe even more than that. I've just been testing them out recently. You may have seen my interview with Sean discussing this. We went over some of the specific benefits of the various types of mushrooms that Sean uses. I think it's a really exciting product to be a part of because not only are they organic, they're non-GMO, but if you know anything about mushrooms, as more and more of us have been learning about the benefits of mushrooms, not just psychedelic mushrooms, but all types of mushrooms, then you understand that they are a great boon to your health. So Sean recently hooked me up and I've been trying the Brain Squared, which is for gut pea flower extract, ashwagandha. I also recently picked up the Radiant Energy, which is for pre and post workout. So I go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week and now starting to take these before and after. These feature cordyceps, reishi, and chaga. And finally, he's got Immune Renew, which is obviously for immunity. This one features chaga, turkey tail, reishi, maitake, shiitake, and extract of nattokinase. I encourage you to go visit the website. It is cultivated-mind.com. And of course, we have a special deal and a discount for those of you who want to purchase them through my link at cultivated-mind.com/cm/broze, BROZE. You can check out the link on the screen right now, or wherever you're watching, check out the link below the video.
All right, so that is Cultivated Mind, another supporter of mine, another company and friend that I support. So let's go ahead and continue. This last story of the evening is focused on what is coming in September. We have the Summit of the Future. We have the United Nations General Assembly meeting. We have the World Economic Forum Sustainable Development Impact meeting. It's going to be quite a big month for the globalist set and their promotion of pushing towards a one world government. And I know that I talked about this recently in my walk and talk. I really used to not be into this idea and even kind of believe that there were people pushing towards one world government. I was like, all right, maybe that is just some right-wing Alex Jones kind of thing, or whatever, John Birch Society. But no, my friends, there is truly an effort and an ongoing effort by numerous groups to try to push us towards one world government. If you're not aware of my reporting on the Summit of the Future, I encourage you to check out my latest article that came out a few weeks ago called "The UN Will Sign the Summit of the Future, the Pact for the Future in 60 Days. Here's Why It Matters." And check that one out here. You can also see I did a video about that, talking about the planetary emergency. I've been reporting on this for over a year now, warning people that something is coming, and most of the media is not even paying attention, independent media, mainstream media even. And in fact, right now, for example, people are probably distracted watching Elon Musk talk to Donald Trump. Meanwhile, there's things like this going on, where the United Nations is potentially going to declare a planetary emergency, where they're expected to sign the Pact for the Future, where they're calling for giving the UN more powers to make it more, have bigger ability to address regional and global crises. And it's overall, it's not a good move. It's not a good thing. It's not going to be good for liberty. Let's just say that. So the point is, while most people are distracted and not paying attention to what's actually happening, these sorts of situations are happening. And I want to point to an article that was just published by my friend Tim Hinchliffe over at sociable.co. Tim does great work following this sort of stuff, similar to my work in terms of the World Economic Forum, globalization, technocracy, etc. He wrote this: globalists outline world government pathway, 75% population reduction, a global truth commission, an Earth system currency, and a revised UN charter. This is one of the things they've been saying. We need to create a UN 2.0. And he wrote, unelected globalists want to rewrite the UN Charter so that it could articulate the rules of a world's parliament for world citizens with binding legislative and enforcement powers that eliminate state sovereignty. A Club of Rome and Council for the Human Future roundtable outlines a pathway towards a one-world government by revising the UN Charter, along with an agenda to voluntarily reduce 75% of the human population, to create a global truth commission, and to establish an Earth system currency. On August 1st, so just 10 days ago, the Club of Rome and Council for the Human Future published a report on a roundtable discussion that they co-hosted back in July. The report, which we have right here, is called Roundtable on the Human Future, a world call to action for the multiple crises now enfolding humanity. And it says that all human life could be extinguished in the mid to later half of the 21st century due to climate change, overpopulation, new pandemics, misinformation, etc. And one solution, which has been suggested by Global Governance Forum Executive Director Augusto Lopez Claros, was to, quote, boost the UN's democratic legitimacy by rewriting the UN Charter in order to give the unelected body more authority and jurisdiction over sovereign nations. And Lopez Claros, it should be mentioned, is a former chief economist at the World Economic Forum. He has also held high-level positions at the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. And he calls for, quote, creating an Earth System Council, giving the UN the system capacity to pass binding legislation to protect our planetary environmental system and the common goods it provides with necessary enforcement mechanisms. This was, and even look at this, the talk is titled, is this a new order, new world order? Like, wow, they really don't hide it much here. He said, we, quote, move on towards a potentially catastrophic future of accelerating climate change, the continued unraveling of our nuclear order, rising and destructive nationalisms, and an economic paradigm that no longer delivers prosperity. So what are they calling for? He said that we need to establish a UN of states and peoples through the creation of a parliamentary assembly and an Earth System Council that would have the authority to pass binding legislation, like we just said a moment ago. So they're calling for giving the UN power. He says one starting point and project in which we have been engaged during the last 2 years is to put forward a detailed vision of what a new UN Charter would look like. This document will be released in New York in September of 2024. So the Club of Rome and this other organization are planning on putting out their document related to why we need a new UN Charter, at the same time that the UN is going to be meeting for the Summit of the Future to sign the Pact of the Future. At the same time, the World Economic Forum is going to be meeting for, let's pull it up, the Sustainable Development Impact meetings. That, I mean, the amount of globalist, internationalist activity taking place in 1 month is not a good thing. Now, of course, they have these meetings every year, the UNGA, but they are treating this and talking about it as if this is a once-in-a-life opportunity. Again, you got the Summit of the Future, Sustainable Development Impact meetings. Now you got the Club of Rome saying that they're going to be releasing their report. And among this, they're talking about building on the concept of the UN to include, more power, creating an Earth System Capacity Council, empowering the UN to meaningfully advance disarmament globally. So they're talking about they're trying to end war and establish world peace by disarming the world, except for the UN. I'm sure they'll still have weapons. To bring about a new system to fund the UN, like I've been reporting on, they keep calling for a new global financial system, and to reform the Security Council. And let's get to the part, though, where they discuss one of the key elements, population. Let's get to that, population reduction, okay? The Club of Rome and the Council for Human Future outline a pathway towards a one government, as we said, by reducing human population. Let's get to that part. They say that we're facing overpopulation. The roundtable proposes the creation of a global truth commission, a global currency, and a plan to reduce 3/4 of human population. They're claiming that under certain scenarios, all human population is going to be gone, but we said, quote, we can develop a viable plan for human survival on a habitable Earth, including a global truth commission, a plan to voluntarily lower the human population, an Earth system currency, and a global circular economy. How they're planning to voluntarily lower the population is, beyond my understanding. But according to Julian Cribb, who's up this organization, he gave a presentation last year where he said that a voluntary reduction of 75% of the population is preferable to a catastrophe, and that free family planning education should teach parents to have one child less. So there you have it. The people at the Club of Rome and this other organization, the World the World Governance Council for Human Future. Here's the report, call for world action on multiple threats. You can read the report. This will be linked below. They're calling for reducing population voluntarily, they claim at the moment. How they plan to do that, they claim it's just through education and helping people know about family planning, abortion, of course, things like that. And then, of course, just in July, just a few weeks back, the second version of the Pact for the Future was released as well. And that is, as I've been saying, this is the document that the UN is calling for an emergency platform that would allow them to give the UN more powers in the event of a emergency. Let me see if they have the same language that says multiple regions. Maybe they don't have the language here, but if where it's affected by multiple regions of the world, whether it's a claimed pandemic or economic crisis, or maybe it's that fake alien invasion, or maybe it's a cyber attack or whatever, they're putting all the cards on the table, my friend, to give themselves more power. The UN, the World Economic Forum, the Club of Rome, and if you know the Club of Rome, if you've read my previous reporting, they have long been involved in calls for population control. This is nothing new. And now we are at another point. This Wednesday, the World Health Organization is going to meet to decide if the alleged monkeypox outbreak in Africa can be declared a public health emergency. Independent experts appointed by the WHO will meet virtually on Wednesday to help decide whether the monkeypox outbreak in Africa is a global public health emergency. The committee will advise WHO Director General Tedros on whether Mpox constitutes a public health emergency of international concern, a PHEIC, and what recommendations he should issue to manage the spread of the virus. Now, this is the important part of this disease, this alleged disease. I don't even buy this garbage. Vaccine manufacturers can now apply to the WHO for an emergency license that would allow international groups, including UNICEF and Gavi, which is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, to procure and distribute their shots. So they can already start giving out shots for this alleged public health emergency. You got Bavarian Nordic is sending 15,000 doses of vaccines to the Democratic Republic of Congo. I mean, this to me is just more experimentation on poor Africans out there. But pay attention, my friends, as we near the U.S. election, they could declare that an emergency, and they could use the Pact for the Future then. If the U.S. is destabilized because of election chaos, maybe it's related to that whole thing Eric Schmidt's talking about and misinformation and AI. Maybe they know something we don't. Or it could be this monkeypox thing, or it could be any other thing. The point is that these people thrive on order out of chaos, and they're pushing us closer and closer to that chaos. And this is what they want. They want us to be in a position where they can scare the crap out of people, and then they can take the powers that they want and do whatever the heck they want. I mean, that's what this really comes down to. Like, and I just want to point out, let me pull this up real quick. I actually did an article back in the COVID days whenever we were first hearing about this monkeypox crap. And they did a simulation similar to with Event 201. You guys may remember about prior to COVID-19 84, 6 months or so back in October 2019, there was a simulation called Event 201. And let me see, monkeypox simulation. It's on here somewhere. If you go to the Last American Vagabond and search monkeypox simulation, you'll find my article for it. It's somewhere in there. I did a pretty a deep dive into the simulation around monkeypox, and maybe now it might be relevant to look back and see what they warned was coming. Here it is. They talked about having no regrets. And this was the interesting thing, is they said that they needed to force measures on the public even if the public didn't like it. Here you go. No regrets. A 2021 monkeypox simulation predicted 270 million dead, lockdowns, mask mandates, and social distancing. You can go and read that. I will include that in the show notes for tonight as well. But my point is, it doesn't really matter, though, my friends. Whatever emergency they want to use, whatever sort of fear-mongering they want to use, you got to be smarter than that. You got to be prepared for it. This is why I talk about getting prepared, not like preparing for doomsday per se, but really thinking about it on a deeper level. What can you do to take care of yourself? What can you do to take care of your family? And to be in a position where you're not dependent on their system. Because I said it earlier, I would hate for people to be in a position where you don't have any food, you don't have any extra money, you don't have any resources, and so you got to go get the shot just to survive, just to feed your family, or you got to go get the CBDCs, the UBI token to get a couple $1,000s a month just to survive, right? They want you broken and dependent on the systems. If they can do that, and if they convince you there's no way out, the only answers we have is politics or being angry and violent or being apathetic, when in reality we have so many other options. It just involves withdrawing your consent from these psychopaths and pulling your time and energy away from them and focusing on what you can do. I call it a holistic self-assessment. Look at your economy, your finances, your food, your health, your education, your relationships, and look at the different areas. Okay, I have a bank account. I've got, credit card debt, student loan debt. I don't want to be in that position because if social credit score comes along, that might impact me negatively, or they're going to chain me to that system with my alleged debt. You got to think ahead. You got to be forward thinking, my friends. Learn more about permaculture, learn more about growing your own food, learn more about getting off these systems, what I call exit and build. And again, my book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, can be downloaded for free at theconsciousresistance.com/how-to. You can buy physical copies. You can listen to the audiobook. You can read the PDF. I believe those are the real answers. That's what I'm going to keep promoting for you guys. And I hope that you will go on this journey. And again, I'll remind you where we started out. The People's Reset UK is happening a week after the Summit of the Future. When the psychopaths meet for their Summit of the Future in September, 1 week later, we're meeting for the People's Reset UK, our summit for our future. 3 days of all solutions. And if you can't make it in person, you can watch online for free. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's an 8-hour event. There are breaks in there, but we're going to have 4 speakers in the morning, a lunch break, 4 speakers in the afternoon, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Come ready, listen to the recordings. It'll be available online for free, the streams for free, because I'm trying to get solutions into your mind, my friends. I'm not trying to just profit off you or, engagement farm off you or get clicks and trigger you or doing clickbait videos or whatever like a lot of people do. They make money off pissing you off and making you think the world is doomed, but it's a lot harder to say, hey, my friend, there are solutions, but it's going to involve you changing your lives, because that doesn't sound sexy to a lot of people. That sounds difficult and hard, and oh my God, I'm so overworked and so broken down. I don't have time to do that for myself, Derrick. And I'm sorry, my friends, though, you are the one you've been waiting for. But also, we need to do it together in community. You need to find other people in your local area. If you're not familiar with freedomcells.org, check out freedomcells.org, CELLS.org. Join the website. Create a local cell or hub or hive or circle in your community. Search the map and find people within your area. Go to local in-person, face-to-face meetup groups and connect with others and start building on the local level. That's what it's going to take, my friends. That's the real true answers. It's not going to come from trusting these people and waiting for them to save us. I mean, that's the bullshit lies that we've been fed our whole lives, and we need to wake up. We need to be mature about this, and it's difficult. It sucks. I'm sorry, my friends. You don't have somebody coming to save you. Maybe your higher power is coming to save you, but the politicians definitely aren't coming to save you. And I know that for some of you, I've heard this from people. I get the emails. Derrick, I hear your ideas and I agree with you, but man, I'm 60, I'm 70. I've worked my whole life. I feel like, time has passed for me. I'm just going to, that's too much work for me. I don't want to learn a new phone. I don't want to take my money out of the bank. I don't want to know how to grow my food. I don't want to work with local farmers. It's just, I'm stuck in my ways. So even though I know bad things are coming, I'm just going to keep doing the same old thing. And I hope that works out for you, but I don't think it will, my friends, because the true answers involve reclaiming your power here in your heart, the power in your mind, the power that we possess, because truly we are made up of divinity. We are made up of the stars, of the soil, of everything that God, Creator, breathed into this life. And I believe that we are here for a reason. I believe that, I know my purpose. I'm here to fight this fight, to spread awareness, to build a better world for the future generations. And nothing has ever felt more important in my life than this. And I will continue to do this until the day I breathe my last breath. But whatever you feel like your role is, whatever you can do in your area, with your community, in your churches, in your neighborhoods, in your families, do it. Because nobody else is going to do it but you. And then together we can keep inspiring each other, we can keep motivating each other, and we can build this better world that we know is possible, my friends. Before I wrap up, I actually have one more story. Remember I mentioned to you guys earlier, this is going to be brief. It's less newsy and just kind of just a little talk here. Remember I was talking about disinformation earlier? Well, disinformation is prevalent in the alternative media. And sometimes it's necessary to call it out, because unfortunately, when people in the conspiracy media, in the alternative media, when they spread false information, and then more importantly, when they don't correct themselves, it gives people like the New York Times here opportunities to write articles like this. What do conspiracy theorists do when proved wrong? They double down or they move on. An outlandish idea that President Biden was dead or nearly dead was quickly refuted, but few of the accounts that spread it online recanted. Now look, personally, I don't get into this whole subgenre of conspiracy theories that it's like, oh, this person's a clone, this one's a double, this one's a fake. It's like a whole area of alleged research, which I think is usually based on very sketchy claims and a lack of evidence. Like people will compare pictures and like, look, but the ear looks different here, and this person's taller based on this thing, and they often kind of just ignore basic facts just to fit a narrative. And this article shows how a lot of people in the last couple weeks were promoting this idea that Joe Biden was dead. And they have a little chart here. They show Stu Peters, who Stu Peters is a horrible disinformation agent. I hate the fact that people like him have gotten so big, because they are, in my mind, these are the mainstream alternative media that are spreading fake news, and it allows the real corporate media to come along and make us all look bad. Stu Peters tweeting about how long has Joe Biden been dead, and that had 47 million views. And then a couple of days later, he says, oh, well, the new actor playing Joe Biden is a foot taller, and that got 250,000 views. They have Laura Loomer, Charlie Kirk, Alex Jones, Todd Starnes, Terrence Williams, some other people, and basically making claims that Joe Biden's dead. And then this is when Joe Biden was not around for a couple of days. And I don't know, maybe he is really dead. But the point is, we don't have evidence of that, and people just like to make wild claims. And then after the fact, they never come back, or they rarely come back and say, hey, my bad, guys, I got this one wrong. Please forgive me. I'm sorry if you spread fake information based on me. No, because this is the problem, that a lot of these people, they're not really journalists. They don't understand journalistic ethics, and they don't give a shit. So they'll just say whatever they want. They like to pretend like they're a journalist, but they don't do actual journalism. They don't have actual sources, and they just say whatever the hell they want. And when they're wrong, they don't correct themselves. Now, that's not an argument to say the government should censor them, or that we should have regulation, or all this crap that Eric Schmidt's talking about with show your identity to get on the internet. But it is a huge problem. And they go further here. They show that only 4 accounts appeared to acknowledge the truth of all the people who said this thing. So you got Mario Nafu, whoever that account really is, Breck Worsham, I don't even know who that is, Nioa Berg, and then Brett Weinstein. And I know who he is. So beforehand, Brett Weinstein says there's a lot of speculation based on considerable circumstantial evidence that President Biden is on his deathbed, or perhaps gone already. And then the next day he says, the many different kinds of evidence that Biden couldn't be seen in public was a psyop. And that got 2 million views, right? So he's kind of saying, okay, psyop, and then Mario Nawfal is saying, clearly something is going on here. And then later on, he's like, breaking, Joe Biden's alive. And this is my other thing I hate about fucking Twitter and these mainstream alternative media accounts. Everything's breaking or exclusive. Even when these people are stealing like stories like from people like me, they just repackage it like it's their reporting. But that's a whole nother issue. But my point is, this is something I've seen for a long time, guys, is that so many people in the alleged alternative independent media, even though they don't, they say one thing, like here, even Michael Malice, I mean, it's pretty much a given that Joe Biden's dead, right, on July 22nd. And then on August 5th, as of August 5th, he hasn't said anything else. Like none of these other accounts, even though now we're seeing Biden out walking around, either they still think he's dead and it's all a psyop, or they just suck. And look, even if you do think Joe Biden's dead, my point still stands. People make wild claims out there without proof, and when they find out they are wrong, they rarely ever update themselves. And that is just as bad as the corporate media. That's in fact worse than the corporate media, because much of the reason we do independent media is because we see the flaws of the corporate media. But if we turn around and basically just do the same things that they do, then how does that make us any better? This is why often over the years of my work, you've seen me do like debunking of stories going around in the independent media. I've done debunking of QAnon stuff. I've done debunking of, like, for example, claims that like the Trump supporters have so much bad information in their head that is not based on reality. Like all the human trafficking went down under the Trump administration. Well, I went and fact checked that, like a real fact check. I looked into it, and it's not true. There's so many other instances like that where people just repeat crap that they keep hearing, and it's because some big influencer, some podcaster, some journalist, some talking head in the independent media said something based on no facts, and then later when they are found to be incorrect, they don't go correct themselves, they don't update their audience, and then unfortunately, even if they do, as you guys know, that millions of people might see the fake news, but only a small percentage are going to see the correction. And the corporate media does the same thing. I'm not saying this is just an independent media thing, but we got to be better than that. Because when the corporate media lies, yeah, later on they'll append some sort of minor correction, we're sorry, this was wrong, and they'll change the title. But at that point, the damage has likely already been done. And the same thing can be said for the independent media. This is why I strive so much more to be, even though I don't have a journalism degree, I'm self-taught journalist for the last decade plus. I've taken journalism courses online. I've got out on the ground, going to press conferences, getting my feet into the street and actually doing the real journalistic work, not just sitting behind a computer all the time like some people who call themselves journalists. And I've made mistakes and I've corrected myself and I've had to come back and do that. That's what being a real journalist means. And that's what I strive to do, guys. And so if you support my efforts and all the things that I do, I just want to invite you guys to invest in my work. You can go to theconsciousresistance.com/invest and you'll find links to my PO box. You can find links to my Substack, my Buy Me a Coffee if you want to sign up for monthly support. That really is the best way to support me, guys. Besides being paid to do articles for The Last American Vagabond, 90% of the work I do, producing documentaries, doing interviews, writing books, I'm not paid for. And I depend on you to continue to be an independent journalist, to travel, to go confront politicians, to ask the hard questions, to dedicate my life to doing these investigations. Please sign up for monthly support on Buy Me a Coffee, Substack. Send me love mail or hate mail to my P.O. box. I've got my crypto addresses there if you're into crypto and you want to support me that way via XMR or Bitcoin Cash. And of course, our website is theconsciousresistance.com. I'll post all the links to the show notes after we wrap up here today. And I very much appreciate you guys being here with me tonight. We're going to end with a music video as we always do. And this one is coming from my buddy Presence. Just put out a new song called Change Ourselves. He is based in Sedona, Arizona. He's playing all over the place. He's going to be playing in the UK, Bath, UK, September 28th as part of the People's Reset concert at the People's Reset UK. And I'm super excited because we're going to have Dub Effects. We played music from him last week. I'm going to be performing. We've got Jen Armstrong, who also goes by the name Vegan Queen V. She's got some amazing songs. We'll play those soon. Presence, and maybe more. If you guys can come in person, I promise you it will be a life-changing event. Bath UK, thegreaterreset.org, and watch online if you can. But until next time, guys, enjoy this song from Presence. It's called Change Ourselves. And ultimately, that's my message, my friends. If we want to build a better world, the message of the conscious resistance is this, that freedom is in the physical realm, and it's also in the personal, spiritual, internal realm. And when we combine those two things together and we work on liberating our minds and our hearts and our physical bodies and focusing on real solutions, not insanity, repeating the same thing over and over again and playing the political dead-end game, we will build a better world. But it's not going to be easy. It's going to take time, energy, effort, and it's going to take our livelihood. But what else is more important, my friends? To me, nothing else. So I hope you guys will join me on this journey. And until next week, my friends, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.
To change the world, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, we got to change ourselves now. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. We got to stop playing the victim and take some responsibility for our lives. We got to stop causing harm and let this most fundamental truth shine bright. We got to know that we are inextricably connected. Our actions affect the freedom of the collective. Respect that when behavior is aligned with the correct intention, society will experience redemption. To change the world, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, we got to change ourselves now. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. Because the right is an action which does not cause harm to another sentient being on this plane. Respect that every human interaction must be voluntary, otherwise it is coercion, pain. We got to know morality is not subjective. Distinguishing right from wrong is objective. Respect that our creator gives us natural law directive and won't accept no act of aggression. To change the world, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, we got got to change ourselves now. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. Well, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? Now, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? Now, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? Now, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? Now, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? Now, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? Now, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? Now, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? To change the world, we got to change ourselves now. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, we got to change ourselves now. To change the world, yeah, we got to change we got to change ourselves. We got to change ourselves. We got to change ourselves. We got to change ourselves.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.